What if your mind, the thing you rely on for your identity and understanding of the world, is the very thing keeping you stuck? How can you free yourself, achieve, and live a fulfilling normal life if your mind is the problem? It sounds like a paradox, but this is where so many of us live without even realizing it. You've probably heard of the observer effect, the idea that simply focusing on something can influence its very nature. In physics, it's the strange reality that observing a particle changes how it behaves. In everyday life, it shows up in a simpler way. What you pay attention to starts shaping who you are and what you experience. Here's the catch. When your attention keeps circling the same thoughts, ruminating on the same stories, the same doubts, it doesn't free you. It actually increases cortisol and inhibits your ability to find a solution. That's not because you're broken or incapable. It's because awareness, when locked into mental loops, creates a cage that shrinks you instead of opening a doorway to freedom. In this video, we're going to explore how the observer effect works in your psyche, why thought loops keep you small, and, most importantly, how you can step out of them. To understand why thought loops feel so inescapable, we need to look at how the brain is designed. At its core, the brain is a pattern-detecting machine. It learns by recognizing familiar signals and making predictions. This is what allows you to drive a car, type a message, or cook dinner without thinking about every detail. It's an incredible gift of efficiency. But here's the shadow side. The same system that makes life easier also makes it harder to escape repetitive thoughts. The brain latches onto patterns. And when those patterns are fueled by worry, regret, or fear, they spiral into loops. Psychologists call this rumination. The tendency to replay the same problem over and over, hoping the next mental rehearsal will finally bring clarity. But instead of solving anything, rumination drains energy and reinforces the belief that you're stuck. Another related process is predictive coding. The brain is constantly trying to guess what will happen next. If your inner world is wired with negative expectations, predictive coding keeps scanning for evidence that confirms them, and that search deepens the loop. Now let's widen the lens. In physics, the observer effect shows us that repeated observation collapses probability into the same outcome. In your psyche, repeated focus does something similar. It collapses a vast field of possibility into the narrow reality of what you expect. Imagine your mind holding countless potential futures. Every time you revisit the same worry, you collapse the wave into the same version of yourself. Attention becomes a kind of gravity pulling you back to familiar ground. Here's where the paradox appears. When we're caught in loops, we assume the solution lies in thinking harder. If we just turn the problem over one more time, we'll figure it out. But that's like digging deeper into a hole and hoping to climb out. The act of thinking is the loop. The harder you push, the stronger its walls become. You might tell yourself, I'll stop worrying once I figure this out. But the very act of figuring is made of worry. The problem and the solution are woven from the same thread. That's why you can feel exhausted after hours of mental wrestling and still feel no closer to peace. Thought loops don't just create mental noise, they quietly shape identity. When the same internal scripts repeat, the brain wires them more deeply. Over time, you stop thinking, I'm worried right now, and start believing, this is just who I am. The loop isn't just in your head. It becomes the lens through which you see yourself and the world. Seeing this clearly isn't about blaming the mind. It's about understanding the mechanics. Your brain's efficiency, your focus, your desire to resolve things. None of these are flaws. They're tools being misapplied. Loops are closed circuits, and closed circuits can be opened. Here's where things get even subtler. Awareness, the source of who we really are and what we rely on to grow, is influenced by attention. In this context, attention means how we focus and direct awareness. We're taught that self-awareness is the key to change, and in many ways it is, but truthfully, change really depends on how skillful we are with where we direct attention and how we define what it is we focus on, because it's the combination of these two elements of awareness attention, and meaning that dictate what we experience. What I am trying to say is, without asserting your will, the mind automatically uses your past to interpret the present and imagine the future, turning your mind into a prison of what you do not want. So awareness alone doesn't liberate, if attention stays focused on the content of thought, the stories, judgments, and what-ifs. Then awareness becomes entangled within the mind's loop tendency. Then, instead of acting as a doorway to change, awareness works like a magnifying glass, amplifying what's viewed as wrong. And the closer you look at any problem, the bigger it feels. This is why psychologists talk about meta-awareness. Meta-awareness isn't just the ability to focus attention on thinking about thoughts, it's the capacity to step back and examine awareness observing itself. Meta-awareness is the shift that changes everything. Rather than reacting to the mind portraying the illusion of being stuck, meta-awareness lets us observe awareness underlying the mindset promoting stuckness. By directing attention into the source of awareness directly, the mind aligns and becomes the servant of awareness, transforming it into a launch point from which anything is possible. Alternatively, trying to think your way out of a negative loop rarely works, because the loop is created by focusing on thinking. But when attention shifts from a focus on thoughts to observing awareness itself directly, the experience of self changes. You become illumined by possibility, rather than stuck living repetition. Learning that your lived experience is determined by where you direct attention means you can change your story whenever you choose. It's like you've been stuck watching a movie on repeat, and suddenly discovering you can operate the projector. You can watch something else, or turn off the drama entirely at any time. And although the realization you are the light of awareness projecting the story of your life is powerful, there is something perhaps even more important that you discover through mastering attention. You find out you can trust yourself because you are not your mind. Your mind was never punishing you, nor was it broken. It was always only doing what it was created to do. You only felt stuck because your mind was protecting you. Familiar thoughts, even painful ones, feel safer to the nervous system than uncertainty. So you mind by design limits change to what is tolerable. This is why change almost always triggers resistance. It's not scary imagining the life we want, but if our identity was suited to the life we imagine, we would already have it. So what you must realize is the change so many seek is not really a change in circumstance. That's just the desired result. The real change, what aligns you with your goal and allows you to live it, requires a shift in identity. Identity shift is the change your mind actually resists. People self-sabotage, fail to achieve, and then feel stuck because the brain is wired to preserve the continuity of selfhood. Meaning, the way you have been conditioned to believe the world works and who you think yourself to be. Once you understand how the mind protects you by preventing unpredictable change, you can see your mind has always been loving you. You have never been a failure. In fact, each avoidance of change was a small victory because it is evidence for how your mind has worked hard to keep you safe. If you can accept your perceived shortcomings are really self-protection, you discover you are inherently kind, and by affirming your loving goodness, you can apply your new self-trust to compassionately creating new habits that will shift your identity in the direction you choose. This is where the observer effect becomes your ally. By creating new habits, we change the way we see the world, which alters how we experience who and what we are. What's changed by how we observing things differently could be a romantic relationship, a work or family situation, or even money matters. But foremost, what changes through altering where we direct attention and how we define what we focus on is us. We change. We shift from being a passive witness to life, to being one who actively engages with it. Think of attention as a sculptor's chisel. Each return to the same belief carves it deeper, while each new belief alters who we are creating ourselves to be. This is why, as a spiritual teacher, I speak of feedback loops. Attention creates recognition, recognition reinforces belief, belief shapes behavior, behavior provokes reactions, reactions inspire emotion, emotion confirms belief. This is the loop that makes us feel stuck. But when alignment becomes coherent and attention becomes a power, and awareness becomes creative and affirming instead of confining. So, how do you step out of the mind's feedback looping? Not by fighting. Resistance makes identity loops feel tighter. We escape identity loops by shifting how we relate to them. First, interrupt the pattern. Loops thrive on momentum. Pause. Take 3 slow breaths. Feel your body. Let attention touch the present moment. Second, practice coherent uncertainty. Instead of demanding answers, allow not knowing. Curiosity softens the mind where certainty tightens it. Third, train attention toward novelty. Movement, creativity, new conversations, new environments. Novelty builds new neural pathways. This teaches us change is fun. Then, as mental loops weaken, life begins to feel different, less repetitive, more alive. Meaningful coincidences appear. New people enter your world. Curiosity replaces dread, and little by little, identity changes. You realize you are not the thinker trapped in thought. You are the field in which thoughts arise. Loops become weather, not the sky. Freedom stops looking like control and starts feeling like openness. Here's the truth I'd like you to remember. Your mind is not your enemy. It is a mirror. It reflects where attention has been resting. Your life can change. It will change. You are as you are today simply because of the choices you have made. The moment you stop trying to impose your will onto life or force identity loops into collapse, the shift will begin. Be gentle and kind to yourself. Follow your creativity. It is how the light of awareness guides you. And when you place your creativity in service to others, you will forget to worry about what will happen next, because you are no longer living from the mind, with it acting as the source of your identity. You will finally be free and experience a fulfillment that reflects all of what you uniquely are, as each day calls into being a life that's more rewarding than you can even imagine.